Hello. Good morning. For me, it's morning at least, but good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. This is our third ELSA event, so we're very excited to welcome more and more people to these kinds of online events. We'll just wait a few moments to let everybody in, allow people to join. Okay, maybe another few minutes. Okay. I think we'll make a start now and then people can continue to join. So welcome everyone to Elevating Ideas. The idea behind this event was really showcasing the diversity of opportunities and solutions across the aviation sector and sustainability sector to address the impact that flying has on climate change. And we have some really interesting speakers lined up today from all over the world. We've actually covered quite a few time zones. So we can't wait to get started. I think if we could go to the next slide, I'll just and the next slide after that. I'll just flag to everyone that this session will be recorded and posted on YouTube. So if you have to drop off at some point or want to recommend the recording to a friend, it'll be published on YouTube in the next week or so. And we'll share the link on LinkedIn as well. So before we get into the meat of the panel, I'd like to hand over to our chair and founder, Amy Strang, to tell you a bit more about ELSA.
Thanks very much, Jane. Yeah, good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. Very happy to have you all here on this call with us today. I'm going to keep this very brief because I think looking at a few names in the call that many of you already know what ELSA is all about anyway. But in case you need a little bit of a reminder, or in case there are a few newbies there, ELSA was founded last year. We launched at the ICAO Innovation Fair. And we launched with a vision to empower the next generation of leaders with the knowledge and connections that they need to build a more resilient and sustainable aviation sector. So really what ELSA is all about is that networking piece. It's about connecting young professionals with each other, but then also with those that are currently leading the industry. And so we hope that we're going to be able to do that for you on the call today. Casey, maybe you can jump to, yeah, thank you. So yeah, that's what these events are all about. We try to host an event once per quarter is our goal, an online event such as this. We're also looking at doing an in-person event later this year. And then on top of the kind of these speaker style events, we also run our coffee date sessions, which hopefully a few of you are already involved with. It's basically where you'd get randomly matched into a small group of other ELSA members, and then you have a chance to kind of catch up with them for a virtual coffee and get to know each other. So if you're not involved in that, we've got another version of coffee dates coming out for the second half of this year. Next slide. We also stay connected online. So we have our ELSA website, which is the best place to go for any information about upcoming events, who's involved in the committee, a bit more about who we are and what we do. This is also where you can sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. And yeah, speaking of the newsletter, we put one out once per quarter, and it's got lots of cool information in it. We've got some cool blog posts and interviews with leaders in the industry. And then finally, we've got our LinkedIn. So that's another way to stay well connected with us, and I'd recommend giving us a follow. The faces of our executive committee. So I'm very happy to say that we've just brought on 5 new members of the executive committee, which brings the ELSA organizing team to 16 people. Quick maths there. Yeah, so welcome to our new committee members. I think that we're all very excited to be involved in ELSA and seeing what we can make of it in its kind of second year of operating. Cool, and next slide. And Jane, I think I'm passing back over to you at this point to do a bit of housekeeping and intro our speakers for today. And you're on mute, Jane, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Early morning. Yeah, quick housekeeping from us. So at the end of the panel session, you'll have the opportunity to submit questions to our speakers. So you can use the Q&A box in Teams. It should be towards the top of if you click on the icon at the top of your screen, it'll pop up on your right-hand side. You can submit questions, and then hopefully we'll have a chance to select a few that we have time for. After the panel discussion and the Q&A, we'll break into small discussion groups where your group will be given 2 questions to kind of get a conversation going and discuss in more depth what was covered in the panel. And we really want to hear your key takeaways, things that may have surprised you. And then after the breakout rooms, we will come back to say farewell and also to give you a chance to scan our QR code to give us a bit of feedback on how we did, what kind of speakers you'd like to hear from in the future, or any questions you might have. Right. So time to meet our speakers. So I'm Jane Lindsay. I'm the ELSA Communications lead. In my day job, I'm the UK Corporate Communications Manager at Airbus, alongside Amy at Airbus. But I've been a member of ELSA since the beginning, and I'm really energized by the chance to meet people, professionals from my generation around the world. I think from there, I'll hand over to Stuart from Stralis to maybe share a bit more about you and maybe the Stralis story.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. Great to be here and great to speak to everybody. My name's Stuart Johnson. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Stralis. Stralis makes hydrogen electric propulsion systems for aviation. So we make it for general aviation sized aircraft. So one of the planes we're working on is a 6-seat Bonanza, if anyone knows what that is. And we're also making it for 150 kilogram UAVs, so multi-copter drones sort of thing. I met Bob, my co-founder, at another startup in Australia, which was called MagniX, and they were doing electric motors. So I actually don't have much aerospace pedigree, unlike the rest of my team. I came more from electric motor design. So we made some electric motors for aviation, and from there we worked in the space where there was a real problem, which was batteries are too heavy for, or we think batteries are too heavy for sustainable aviation. So we went round in circles for a while before deciding just to jump into a hydrogen startup, which was maybe a bit crazy at the time, but yeah, no regret so far. I'll pass on to Maxine.
Hello, thanks, Stuart. Good to hear about your developments. And I was previously at Airbus Urban Air Mobility, so I was looking at what MagniX was up to. So
wow.
great to hear your progress. On our side, on my side, I'm the co-founder of Estuaire. Estuaire is a data platform working on aviation and climate impact. We created the company with my brother actually 3 years ago. And let's say that the founding journey was there was a little bit of serendipity because we were kind of working after hours with my brother and playing with like a flight radar tracks. Like, hey, there's amazing visibility. Aviation is like super transparent, right? You can track any flight on a mobile app today. So we were playing with this data a little bit, and sustainability was a big thing and emerging at the time. And we were like, yeah, we could maybe model CO2 and also like other effects of aviation based on all those flight tracks that we can collect. And actually, the first thing we did was to sell a consulting project to an aircraft lessor. They had 300 aircraft, but they didn't really know where those aircraft were flying, and their investors were asking them about emissions. So that's where we started, and then step by step, we kind of automated our approach, data ingestion pipelines, enrichment with weather data, and so we've built this platform today where you have every month a few million flights. We update it, and so for every flight, we try to characterize CO2, non-CO2 effect, contrails, you might have heard about them. So really kind of a digital twin of aviation and its climate impact. And recently we've launched a flight optimization product where we, beyond monitoring, we help also airlines launch contrail avoidance campaigns where they can actually forecast where those contrail areas are. Contrails are notably responsible for a large share of global warming from aviation. And so they can adapt altitudes or take shortcuts, lateral deviations to avoid those contrail areas. And it's great. I had a couple of members of the team being part of ELSA, so it's great to be here today.
Thank you, Maxime. And Kwame, could you tell us more about you and AfriSAF?
Yeah, sure. So it's a pleasure to be here. A bit of introduction about myself. Kwame Biko. I've spent about 20 years in aviation. I studied in Airbus in engineering. So my background is undergrad in aerospace engineering, master's aerospace vehicle design in the UK. And then I started working in the design office, working on wing design in Airbus. And I transitioned from there into marketing, aircraft sales, and business development. So about 12 years in Airbus. Then I worked in aircraft leasing with GE, the capital leasing organization, for about 4 years. And then what happened was 2021, during the pandemic, of course, sustainability began to be a very big challenge in aviation. I would say, it was very clear that it was going to be a major driver in this space, and seeing how much it was going to impact the industry moving forward, and being very closely aligned with sustainability. That's when I sort of started my sustainability journey. So at the time I did my MBA, I took some time out, and then I joined a startup in the e-fuels sector, which is basically a power to fuel. It's a process of producing liquid hydrocarbon, sustainable aviation fuel from renewable power. And basically seeing the opportunity in Africa that there is a global challenge when it comes to feedstock availability to produce sufficient amounts of sustainable aviation fuel. And also coming from Africa and with a strong background, understanding the region and the fact that at the moment there is no SAF production in the continent, but there's a huge amount of the feedstock, the potential residue that can be used to convert to SAF. I joined my co-founder just over a year ago to launch AfriSAF, which has become one of the major organizations driving for the enablement and development of a SAF ecosystem in the continent. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that come up.
Thanks, Kwame. And that's quite a wide-ranging list of roles there. You've kind of seen it all. But it's great to have all three of you with us. I think going from hydrogen to flight data and contrails and SAF is a really nice mix to have for this discussion. I think maybe we can dive straight into the first question. So this is to all three of you. What is one key insight into the industry that helped you succeed, or anything that you wish you knew before you got started? If anybody wants to go first.
I'm happy to jump in.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, it's kind of obvious now, but aviation is like really hard. Like, it's a small market in terms of like global markets, and it's dominated by quite a small set of significant if you want to break into that. But the good thing is, if you do manage to break into that space, then there's a big moat around you. So a big moat that protects your competition from beating you at your game, sort of thing. And I think the one insight that I've learned, and again, it's so many people told me this, but I didn't really internalize it until sort of the last year or so. But you really have to find those places where like the current systems are not working and try and get in there first. When we started, we were pretty naive in saying, let's build a 50-seat regional aircraft and we'll just roll it out and it'll be a little bit cheaper than the current 50-seat aircraft. But no one's really like clamoring for that solution. We thought they might be a bit more with like sustainability targets and stuff, but that's sort of waned a little bit in the recent year. But now what we're saying is like there are some small UAV platforms whose missions are like really performance limited by the endurance that they have with batteries or even with like hydrocarbon fuels. And then we can solve that. We can offer something that's like much better for those like really critical missions where if they don't have that endurance, they cannot do what they're trying to do. So by getting in there first, then we can really like find our launch pad sort of thing. Best place to start.
Yeah, so maybe, beyond just the sustainability purpose, also finding a real market gap to build the momentum.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
performance is something everyone gets excited about. But it's really like where's someone clamoring to get their hands on something and you have the solution. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it's quite hard to find that thing.
Kwame, Maxime, any things you wish you knew?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I've come to learn, throughout my career is aviation is, firstly, it's a very cyclical industry, firstly from the way airlines operate from a season to season, and even just as an industry in terms of what is the real driver that is at play at a certain moment. And of course, there are certain drivers that are always going to be very crucial when it comes to aviation. Of course, safety brings something that brings the whole industry together as one. And, more and more sustainability is becoming a driver that is really just bringing together, even companies that could be seen as competitors together for that one driver. And I think just how interconnected the industry is, I think as Stuart, you mentioned, it's a very small industry. People are very connected. Networks are very strong. Reputation is very important. And I think one of the things that really helped me succeed is leaning on those networks that I've built over the past sort of years and decades, through business partners and players in the different companies, because there are really a few number of companies and people generally rotate amongst these companies. So it is really important to see where you can, sort of help support, add value, be a personal value to really ensure that you can progress in what you're doing. And I think just generally for me, the other point I wanted to raise is aviation teaches you resilience, because obviously it's a sector that is very susceptible to world impacts and trends happening in the world. I mean, I was doing my undergrad during 9/11, and at the time it felt like there was just not going to be an industry once I graduated. But obviously that's the industry picked up very rapidly after a couple of years. And, I've sort of worked through the global pandemic, through the SARS epidemic, through COVID, which was really disastrous for the industry. It completely transformed my career. So I think just being able to pivot, read the trends, understand what is coming as an organization, as an individual, and being able to adjust. I started my career again as an engineer. I thought I was going to be an engineer for, throughout my whole career. But I moved from marketing, I moved to sales, I moved to business development. And obviously now I'm in sustainability. So I think just that flexibility is really crucial for everyone to have, because the industry does, sort of turn a lot, and it requires you to be flexible and move with what is important. So I think that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. So adaptability and resilience. And I'm very delighted to hear you emphasize the importance of personal networks and the fact that this is such a small industry, because that's exactly what we're trying to address with ELSA, so that, by the time our generation of professionals rise up into leadership positions, we'll know exactly who to pick up the phone to. So it's great to hear that
Exactly.
that's really making a difference for you and for your career and for AfriSAF. Maxime, did you have something that you wish you knew before you started?
Yeah, I can only echo what has been said. In fact, it was going to be my answer as well. So first on the network, yeah, I would not advise any. I think it's very difficult. I would put it that way, to launch a company in aviation fresh out of university. Because I mean, my personal story is really about when the company started. You first go to your network. If you work for a large OEM, for example, like some people here are, you can reach out to former colleagues. You've been working with them. You have a reputation of the work you've been doing. So they'll answer, they'll help. They can even become your first clients if that's what you want to address. So launching a company in aviation with little network is you're just making your life harder. I think that's a fact. The second one is about patience in this industry. I mean, we're in the kind of also we have one foot in the software space and one foot in the aviation space. And you see, right, in software and data, things go real quick. In aviation, there's, as Kwame said, business is cyclical. Sometimes, procurement decisions take time. You need to show that you're here to last and you're on a mission, and that's what makes you also a robust partner. If you're just pursuing an idea for a given amount of time, but you're not here to last, and you maybe turn yourself to something else afterwards, then you're not trustworthy in a way. And a last one, to echo what Stuart said from on Australia's side. Yeah, with this whole, so sustainability has always, I mean, still a big consideration. But let's say that there's, for businesses involved in sustainability, and that's not only in aviation, there's a normalization. If your economics don't work, your business will not succeed. So there's a kind of back to fundamentals, back to return on investment. And yeah, so it's about playing with maybe a regulation, but the most tangible value proposition that you can have ultimately is not to bring you time savings. It's not to help you be compliant. It's to bring you a return on investment. That's what sells, pure and simple. So, and I guess you can, yeah, when you launch a company, you can have like a great ideas about our common well-being, and say, I don't want to say saving the planet or anything, but that's not what sells, and that's not what builds a business.
Yeah, so it's sounding like sustainability is something that adds value, but not the sole part of a new company, which makes sense, I think. I think we're ready to go into the first question to, I think, is to Stralis. So Stuart, you mentioned that you're working on a hydrogen electric Beechcraft Bonanza, which I'm a huge fan of personally. I think it's quite exciting that you're doing that with such a classic airplane. how do you stay grounded in the near term when hydrogen flying is such a long-term vision? And how do you kind of extend that grounded feeling to your external stakeholders like partners and investors?
Yeah, it's a really good question. But firstly, like, yeah, the Bonanza is looking pretty cool right now. Like it's got a new fresh coat of paint. We've got all like your sponsors and partners like stickers on the side, and the fuel cell system is like in the engine bay now. So we're just doing like final checkouts and stuff before taxing before long. So it's actually it's pretty cool looking and probably never looked better. But back to the question, I think, I mean, this talks about progress, but progress is the key word. It's like the most important thing. Like you don't need to build Rome in a day, but you need to constantly show we're somewhere further ahead than we were 6 months ago, and like that's what we've tried to do. We've been various levels of successful at that. Sometimes not that successful, but we have been doing decent milestones at a fairly regular pace where, yeah, we've not gone as ambitious as we hoped for to start with, but each time we do a major technical milestone, it's like twice as good than it was 6 months ago. And I think from the external stakeholder point of view, that's what they need to see to stay on board, because we are quite a long way from sort of real market validation. We have a number of letters of intent to purchase aircraft, and we've got some Bonanza pilots that are super keen to get theirs converted. But in terms of like a real sustainable business, we've got some way to go there. So we rely on the stakeholders' belief in us to pull off what we're saying to do. So like stakeholders, like whether that's investors, airline partners like Brisbane Airport are big supporters of us. Like we rely on those people to essentially help us out. And the thing that gets them on board really is that just consistent story of like, we were here, now we're twice as better, we're going to be doing this in 6 months time, and we'll be flying in 6 months after that, sort of thing. So they really buy into the narrative, buy into the story, and come along on the ride with you. But at the same time, you have to do all this other boring stuff in the background. So we've got like 8,000 hours on testing tiny little cells like this size of a postage stamp, and nobody cares about that at all. Like there's very little interesting and exciting stuff you can say about that, but it's that data and it's that information that's really going to make us succeed in the future. Like that's the thing that differentiates us from all of our competitors, and that's the thing that's going to make sustainable hydrogen electric flight possible, or not possible, but commercially viable. So you got to keep that stuff going as well, even though it doesn't get you so many like excited smiles from the people around about you, sort of thing. So yeah, it's a balance. It's tricky, but yeah, consistency I think is the key thing.
Yeah, that's the key to that trust. Yeah, I mean it's fascinating to hear all the different partners that go into that, and we'll be watching to see how things go with the Bonanza.
Yeah, thank you.
I think our next question is for you, Maxime. So in aviation, no one builds in isolation, and especially with what you're doing with flight data, you're getting inputs from airlines, airports, regulators. What's been the biggest lesson for you in getting those players aligned where you've had to do that, especially in a startup where it's so complex?
Yes, so we address those various segments, it's true. In some cases, we need to have them aligned, but not all the time. Like we can address, they each have their own objectives. For example, when you look at the interface between an airline and an airport, an airline is interested in, fast turnaround times, less complexity. They want contact stands. And then the airport is rather interested in, channeling also passengers through, duty-free area, getting non-airside revenues. And then they want the airline to opt for more options so that there's also more airside. So the interests are not necessarily aligned, but still. In some cases, there's, let's say we've been following a kind of a design thinking approach where it's kind of you start by, if you're an airline or if you're an airport, you start to put yourself in the position of the airline, like walk in their shoes a little bit. And so some concepts we've come up with is really things like we wanted to align both around sustainability. And so, for example, when it comes to taxi times, we all know, right, when an aircraft reduces its taxi time to the runway, that's less emissions, they're faster in the air. For the airport, it's better as well. So we were like, maybe we could put, the airport came up with this idea to put a kind of an airline leaderboard where basically they would send each airline their taxi time performance, but you wouldn't name their competitors. You would just show them this is where you stand versus the rest of airlines operating our facilities. So you can improve or you're already the best. And then the airline would value that information because they say, oh, hey, I have a fuel savings opportunity here. Please help me improve because apparently I'm not tops. And so in this way, you can kind of align both around a common sustainability goal. So it's not a generic answer. It's just one example, but
No, it's a good one. Yeah, I think we hear that a lot in sustainability, finding the mutual benefit, the mutual priority, and the opportunity that that brings. Um, and then I think our next question is for you, Kwame, about how AfriSAF sits at the crossroads of clean energy and economic development. You mentioned the huge opportunity with feedstock in the region. Was there a moment for you where things really clicked in making SAF feel like a real scalable business in Africa?
Yeah, so I think for me it happened obviously around the pandemic, but I think just to give a bit of background, I'm a second-time founder already, an entrepreneur in Africa, but in the agricultural space. So around 2018 with a group of co-founders, and by the way, this was on the side while I was working still in my aviation job. We founded a crowd farming platform which enables smallholder farmers across Africa to basically attract financing to basically fund their operations, almost like an Uber for agriculture. And we kind of scaled that up to over 33,000 farmers in the region. So, I had this very strong interest in agriculture and in farming, in social development as well. Because what I realized is that in the region, the impact that you could have was pretty much to those in the agricultural communities. And that's what would drive social development. So I think in 2021, what really struck for me is that link between agriculture and aviation, my two passions, seeing that the sustainable growth of one could be built on the use of the residue or the waste of another. So it was really about bringing the two sectors together and then launching based on that opportunity. So I think for me, that's really what made it click. And as a region, Africa, unfortunately today, a lot of the residue is either burnt after, harvest, it's discarded, it's left to decay, it has a huge amount of there's a huge amount of waste management issues when it comes to residue from agriculture. There are issues when it comes to air pollution because of the burning of residue, which indirectly leads to health issues as well. So there are real economic opportunities aligned with this, which can also tackle major social challenges in the region. So we could see it ticking, a number of, really significant boxes while supporting the decarbonization of aviation. And then on the aviation side, I think one of the things that was and is very clear is that there simply is not enough sustainable feedstock to drive net zero by 2050. So we need to start looking at new and novel locations. And having realized that amongst the informal smallholder population in the region in Africa, there's over 500 million tons of residue that is unaccounted for. It's burnt and discarded. What our mission became is to see how we could develop sustainable supply chains that can accurately certify this feedstock. So we are developing a tool that supports on the certification of feedstock in these communities, and links it to refinery projects to produce sustainable aviation fuel. So that's sort of where we are at the moment. We've grown with really strong partners, and really working to sort of launch our product with our first pilots. So that was really what clicked for me. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing. So I didn't realize that you had another another startup in agriculture. So for you to combine those two passions and experiences with aviation as well is amazing. And the whole story of connecting all of these different aligning priorities, as Maxime said, I mean, it makes so much sense. There's so many reasons to do it. So yeah, it's a pretty amazing story, and we
Yeah.
will be keeping an eye on AfriSAF
Thanks.
with the pilot.
Thank you.
So one last question for all three of you, and you can think about who wants to go first, but focusing, well, I think Stuart mentioned a big part of maintaining trust with your supporters, your investors, your partners is near-term achievable goals and consistency. What is the biggest operational bottleneck for you or challenge you're facing over the next 12 to 18 months? What are you tackling at the moment?
Okay, I can go
Someone
first
else
if
can
you
go
want.
first.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in line with that, so as I've mentioned, we've been acting a lot on contrails, contrail avoidance. It's both a short-term agenda because we think it's like where you get the quickest returns on climate savings, really. But it's also a long-term shot. EU regulation is only starting. It's just monitoring. There's nothing financial yet. So as a young company, you need to wonder, do you want to actively pursue only contrails for the next 12 to 18 months, as you've asked? Or do you want to diversify a little bit? And so right now we are repurposing our technology simply towards also fuel efficiency. And so helping airlines save fuel. And tomorrow we'll make the contrail module optional on top of it. So we still work on contrails and non-CO2 effects, but we cannot afford to wait for like a strong commitment of the sector and then EU regulation. So our last challenge was the team, hiring, growing the team, having the capacity to deliver. That's behind us. The next one for the next 12 months is really about product strategy.
Mm-hmm. Great. Anyone else want to
Yeah.
go next?
I think one of the things we've come to realize, understand, is the importance of data, particularly in this space of sustainability. I think, listen, everything needs to be backed by data, and I think in this world, really, where we're leveraging, and many companies are leveraging AI tools that can easily sort of assess and sort of work with data. It's really important for us, particularly, to be at the grassroots, and really have the models that can secure the data that is important, because something that can't be measured or tracked really, again, doesn't really link to a tangible output. And particularly in a world where greenwashing is something that is really looked down upon, I think it's really important to be very transparent. So we're developing transparency tools, monitoring tools, to really get as much data that can justify the benefit of what we are actually doing. And I think, for our investors, for the people who are looking at us, and also just demonstrating that there are no unintended consequences, that for us has been the key driver at the moment, moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean that is key, I guess, measurement, and it's hard to know whether you're attaining those near term goals that we've talked about. The kind of the key of keeping the momentum going. Stuart, anything to share from the Stralis side?
Yeah, I mean, our biggest bottleneck is almost always funding. So as a hardware company, you never have enough money. Like if I had $200 million, I could probably spend it in a couple of weeks. Like, yeah, there's plenty of things to spend money on. But you can get money as long as you have a coherent story and you have a business case and it's provable. So if you can demonstrate you have customers, then investors will give you the money to execute on your program. So it's kind of straightforward story, but the hard thing for us is just this little bit of chicken and egg thing. So we're looking for investors to invest in our UAV program, and to date, all the sort of sales we've done is selling to big airlines. It's sort of been B2B, whereas these smaller drones are more like retail sales. So that's a lot harder to do with a pitch deck and like some progress, like I was showing talking about earlier. For retail, people really want to see the actual thing that they're going to be buying. Like, show me what it can do, and then we'll buy it from you. So we have a bit of a chicken and egg. Like, we need to get the product built and in people's hands. We need to get the customers after that, and then we need to get the investors to pay for building the thing. So it's a little bit like we're going to do it in a sort of iterative process, but yeah, just I always compare it to, you know, those little Japanese puzzle boxes where you have to pull out one little bit, move the other bit, turn a key. Like it's always like that, just little movements in every direction before you finally get to like open it up. So yeah, that's getting that story straight and getting the funding is the thing we're facing just now.
Yeah, no, and I think I'm glad you're giving us a bit of a look into, some of the challenges that startups face. I mean, it's no secret funding is always a tricky one.
Yeah.
But also the fact that you are kind of plugging in different puzzle pieces and trying to find the best solution that works. And it makes me think of what Maxime was saying earlier about founding SUR with his brother and poking around flight data tracking and finding solutions that way. That's so much of what the advantage that I think smaller groups and startups have. I'm getting some questions coming in from the group, and one is actually on that topic, which is, where do you think startups have the greatest opportunity to create impact compared to larger aerospace companies?
I think for me, it's a great question. And I think all of us have been in large organizations. We understand the bureaucracy around large organizations and the complexity to put in place innovative solutions, because fundamentally they're constrained to certain objectives and, ultimately to shareholders. So, you're very constrained in how fast you can move, but also what you can do. And I think just being a startup, being very nimble, being able to take certain types of risks that large organizations can't take is a really strong opportunity, I would say. So I think for us, that's been our major, sort of the opportunity that we've seen. And in taking those risks, to some extent, or bold bets, we are able to attract the support indirectly from, these corporates. So I think that's the opportunity for startups as opposed to major corporations.
Yeah. We've got another one that I think is a question that I've seen coming up more. Some observers point to a recent slowdown in aviation sustainability, including challenges with SAF scaling and funding. How do you view this trend, and what is your outlook for the next 5 years?
I mean, I can take that. Like it's real. It's very real. Like the slowdown in capital, slowdown in capital into startups is is substantial, but I think the dialing back on sustainability targets is really affecting like a lot of us in the space, and especially hydrogen has a particularly sort of bad taste at the moment, which is sort of unfortunate. But the good thing is, like someone was Kwame was saying it earlier, it is cyclical as well. So we always say, just don't die, just keep holding on, and then we'll come round on the next cycle. But yeah, I think like the reality is it's you rely on these sort of big trends. Like that's what people invest in. They look at the macro trends and they think they have a pretty investors have somewhat of a short-term outlook. Like they have funds that are sort of 5 years, so you have to be pretty serious about telling that story that we can get a return on their investment within the time frame, and that really comes down to timing according to those cycles as well.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer the question? Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would add that yes, there's like a natural kind of sorting and prioritizations, like the good technologies, the good projects emerge, and the ones that were maybe laggard, like don't get funding. But at the same time, on sustainability, there's also good signals. Like for example, last year was the first year of the Refuel EU SAF mandate and the UK SAF mandate, both at 2%. If you were hearing projections a few years back, they were like, the industry will never be able to deliver those 2%. And here we are, right? The boss of EASA on the EU side said that the 2% were achieved. And on the UK side, it was actually not 2, but 2.5% of jet fuel that was need SAF last year out of UK airports. So the mandate has been met. And now it's on to the next one. What happens until 2030? What about e-fuels versus biofuels? And but still, right, on its first year, the industry showed it was able to deliver, and that a mandate is maybe the good regulation on SAF because it gives visibility to everyone, including investors. So there's also good, let's say, good signals.
Yeah, providing certainty for investors. Kwame, were you going to come in?
I was just going to add that it's really important in this space to have a long-term view as well. And I remember we launched AfriSAF just after the drill baby drill comment last year, and it just felt like the worst time to launch a sustainability startup. But I think ultimately, you're working to get to product market fit. The end goal, and for us that is clearly in SAF, and we know the size of this opportunity and the importance the sector has made to be net zero by 2050. Even though it's difficult, we believe it's possible. I think aviation has accomplished amazing things and will continue to accomplish amazing things in many different spaces. So I think the industry will realign. And in the interim, actually, what we do is we realize there are other sectors that can use our products, that can use our feedstock, that can use our tools. So we have seen other areas to service in the interim. So really just being innovative and seeing where you can sort of bridge certain periods is pretty crucial as an organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, explore other beneficiaries. Well, because as you say, aviation's a cyclical industry. This will be a very long-term cycle for decarbonization. And what you said, Maxime, about referencing the Refuel EU mandate and the UK SAF mandate, I think you're right to point to what's working well. And I think sometimes as an industry, we don't celebrate success enough, or maybe to the right people, and you want to stay humble at the same time because of how long this challenge is going to be. But I think showing when things work well is such an important part, and celebrating success in the right way is going to be essential for kind of overcoming sustainability fatigue. We've got another question, one that I've been wondering about as well. It sounds like each of you saw a gap or need in the industry, and your experience led to a possible solution. What drove you to take that first step in investing in your idea? Did it feel like a huge risk?
Yes,
Okay,
go ahead.
first.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Okay. I kind of touched on it in my sort of intro, but it was almost driven by frustration. Like we were seeing like what people were doing, and we were involved in it, and we just kept looking at the problem. It was like, this is never going to close. Like why are we putting like all this time, energy? Like what we were doing was super cool. Like in terms of an engineering project, it was amazing. Like what a great project. But when you were looking at what the end goal was and what we're trying to achieve, we're just like we're coming up so short. This is not on MagniX. MagniX is making electric motors, which is a fantastic product and idea. But what we were trying to achieve with like battery electric aircraft was just like it was just one of those moments where you're just like there has to be a better way of doing this, and we just dived into it feet first. So actually at no point was I thinking like, oh, this is a bad idea, or maybe we shouldn't do that, or this is like a big risk to my career or anything like that. Like it was just like there's not enough people doing or trying to solve this problem, and like we have as good a chance as anyone, sort of thing. So went for it.
Any other thoughts on what it was like to take that first big step and where it came from?
So on our side, so when I was at Airbus, before it was Airbus helicopters, I was doing what are called life cycle analysis of helicopter concepts, and that's where you realize, right, when you look at the climate impact of an aircraft, the majority comes from the operational phase, so burning jet fuel. It's the same for a helicopter, and that's where you realize that there's kind of the dark side of the climate impact, which is okay. There's CO2 is a largest share from jet fuel combustion, but you have all those nitrous oxides and contrails and sulfur oxides and all the rest, all the other pollutants, which are mostly known for their health impact, but not really about climate. And then, but when you start converting them and adding it up, you're like, oh wow, that non-CO2 picture is big. And so it first started from like a kind of a technical standpoint. It's like, let's shine light on in there, because if this is so much impact on and so much warming down the road, maybe this industry is hard to abate, but maybe this side is easier to abate. And so, but it was purely like a techno interest, right? That's not how you should build a business. It's like engineers. There's a lot of engineers in this space building businesses, right? So, but you look, and then fortunately, the EU kind of also followed the same path and said, okay, let's monitor those non-CO2 effects. They do matter. They commissioned the report to ELSA. They created a regulation, and so ultimately the whole ecosystem, like Airbus, Boeing, launched a whole bunch of research programs. So suddenly the industry started to look at that a bit closer and speak about contrast. But this was maybe a little bit by luck, because it could have remained hidden in research papers for another 10 years now, to be honest. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, one of the things we have been seeing, of course, in aviation is that, the major trends have been changing. There was once, of course, in the 1900s, safety was an issue, then it was speed, then it was, cost, and now it's sustainability. And we're in a space now where I think just at an industry level, we're moving from a kind of, linear kind of extractive approach to a more circular and restorative approach. And there is so much that can change in this period, and so much will change with regards to aircraft operations, the use of fuel, and the approach forward. So it's almost like a great reset, where even the largest corporations are starting from ground zero. And being a startup, you are able to really innovate, learn fast, and really just capture a piece of the market where you feel that there is a good strategic opportunity. So for us, the fact that we sat in that sort of like intercept between aviation, agriculture, and Africa quite well has really positioned us quite strongly, and we leverage that. Often they say as an entrepreneur, you need to understand where you have like a competitive advantage. And I think that that's really what helped to birth our vision in this space. You know, just realizing we think that we're quite good in this like sort of space, and let's just give it a shot, see how it goes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like what I'm hearing from three of you is the things that gave you confidence and got you to that point of taking the step. So in your case, Kwame, all those, your experience and all those external priorities aligning, and Maxime taking the technical observations and turning it into something that delivers a return on investment and I understands what all the different clients and ecosystem partners that you work with, what they want and what they need to measure. And then in your case, Stuart, being in the middle of a really exciting project, but then seeing how it could be done better and then thinking, well, why not us? I think is a really cool way to kind of end the panel session of, you know, why not us? If you get to a point where you build your experience and build your network and reputation, as all of you said, because it is a small industry. And that gives you the confidence to take that first step, in spite of the risk, in spite of starting small. So thank you, all three of you, for your time and answering these questions and giving such thoughtful responses. I think we will go into breakout rooms now. You're welcome to join us, but we'll have two questions to discuss. I think they will be coming on the screen shortly. Here we are. You'll have 20 to 25 minutes to discuss with your group two questions based on the panel discussion, and then we'll all come back into the main room and close. And we would love for you to give us some feedback and follow us on LinkedIn. So without further ado, I'll leave it to Casey, our events lead, to split us off.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Bear with me for just a moment while I get these rooms set up. Once everyone is divided into the rooms for the discussion, I'll be sharing the questions in the chats themselves. If no one is jumping to get the conversation started, we do have an icebreaker. Whoever was the last person on a flight or to have taken a flight can get the conversation started in each of the rooms. So please take a second to discuss that. And like I said, in just one moment, we'll have you all divided up.
Great. Thank you, Casey. You might want to start thinking about when you were last on a flight, because sometimes it takes a minute. Great. I think people should be getting an option to join a room, so we'll see you all shortly.